Hey there, this is Tafiq Akhir, Mr. Menopause here, and I just want to really thank Ellen for having me on the Rock Your Midlife podcast. We had a great conversation about menopause and healthy aging in general. I love that a woman actually reached out to me to be on this show. I think it's so important to have men in this conversation, and the fact that Ellen had me on the show means a lot, and I think it's going to help to change a lot of the ways that people perceive menopause and healthy aging.
Welcome to the Rock Your Midlife podcast, your transformative sanctuary designed to guide you through self-discovery and provide the tools you need to find your purpose and navigate life authentically. Whether you want to optimize your health, boost your happiness, or deepen your self-love, this podcast is your ultimate toolkit. Welcome to Rock Your Midlife. I'm Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer. I'm thrilled that you are here today because we have a really interesting show. I have done probably a dozen shows about menopause, because let's face it, ladies, menopause is one of the biggest challenges that we face as midlife. But I gotta say, in all of those interviews, I have never talked to a guy about menopause. So I'm super curious about what our guest is going to share today. His name is Tafiq Akhir. And we're going to be talking about the importance of menopause awareness for adequate support. And I think that's just so incredible because it's just growing. There are more books, there are more podcasts, more people talking about it on Instagram, about Facebook. We are talking about menopause, and that's super important. So the importance of awareness. And I think today's show is going to give you a really different perspective. We'll be talking about the importance of including men in the menopause conversation. I know menopause is about the menses pausing, but I always think it's so funny that it's called menopause instead of like womanopause. But we're going to be talking about like, how do you talk to this? How do you talk about this with your husband, with your boyfriend, with your siblings? It's super important with your boss. If your boss happens to be male, how do we bring the men into the conversation? Because I know that thinking about when I was going through menopause, I never talked to my ex-husband about it. And I think that there wasn't as much awareness. I'm 61 and I went into menopause officially about 5 years ago. And there's been so much more conversation around it. And I wish I had had some tools like, okay, so how do I talk to my husband and say, I'm crabby because, or, I need this kind of support. I need you to like pick up the kids so I can do a little bit more self-care, whatever it is. So we're going to be talking about how do we include the guys in the conversation. And then we're going to be talking about the importance of personalizing the treatment because it's not a one size fits all. We all go through it and have different experiences. I think hot flashes are pretty common to most women. I think something like 85%, 90% of women experience hot flashes. Weight gain is super common, insomnia, brain fog, but everybody experiences menopause differently. And we all need to have different techniques. So I think you're going to want to grab a cup of tea and maybe, some soy milk to help you with those hot flashes, and grab a pen and paper because I know that Tafiq is going to have a lot to share. My guest again is Tafiq Akhir. He's known as Mr. Menopause, and we'll get into why he got that moniker. He's an award-winning menopause specialist, educator, and author, speaker, host, and advocate dedicated to empowering women over 40. With over 2 decades of experience, Tafiq is renowned for his comprehensive approach to menopause, symptom relief, healthy aging, and illness reversal. As the creator of the Menopause Made Simple training series and host of the Mr. Menopause Show, he provides practical solutions and support through workshops, training, and media channels. His mission is to help women confidently manage their menopause journey and advocate for their health through comprehensive education and support. He is a 2-time recipient of the CRE Global Award for his innovative contributions to women's health, and he is a corporate wellness consultant and a partner with the Menopause Experts Group, a member of the Menopause Society, formerly called the North American Menopause Society. Well, that we have in common. I'm on the medical board of the National Menopause Association. So good to have you here. I am so thrilled to start this conversation and enlighten us on how we can bring the men in and also kind of what your unique perspective is. Welcome.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you again for inviting me on. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So my first question is, how did you get into this? It's not like you're, a kindergartner and they go around the room and like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to be Mr. Menopause, right? Maybe like Mr. Olympics. But how did you get into the business of working with women 40 plus?
I started actually working in nutrition, health, and fitness about 24 years ago. And I really don't know why, but for whatever reason, no matter what studio I worked at, no matter what gym I worked at, for whatever reason, women just were more attracted to my coaching style, my training style, the way I taught. And I do have to admit that at first it bothered me that men didn't want to train with me and that more women did. But it was actually my partner who said, you know, if women are coming to you, then you should embrace it. And so I did. And I just decided I wanted to be the best health coach that I could be for women. And so I started training with women that way. And from there, I started getting personal training clients. So they would say, do you do privates? And I'd say, yeah. And I don't know if you've ever done training, but you get a pretty personal relationship with your private clients. So of course they started sharing about their health issues and, even family issues, like, their health issues, how they triggered issues with their husbands or their children or things like that. And I just started noticing the health implications. And from there, again, wanting to be the best at what I did, I just started learning about metabolism specifically for women, nutrition specifically for women, anything that was related to women's specific health. I went and got the certifications for those things and did the continued education credits. And as my clients started to transition and get older, I started to notice very similar like symptoms and issues that I can remember my mom going through when I was a teenager. Like the hot flashes or the headaches and the not being able to sleep, having to cancel their training because they didn't sleep that night before. And then I started wondering, like, my mom passed away in 94. So here women are still having the same issues all these many, many years later with still no symptom relief, no medical interventions and these things. So again, I did more studying. And I actually came across a guy, a Dr. Jay Teta, and he had a program at the time called the Menopause Program. And that was my first introduction to menopause. And I started using some of his techniques, and that started helping my clients. But then I also started combining like the metabolic health things that I had learned previously about women's health and seeing the correlation with menopause. And that's how I started transitioning to focus on menopause itself.
That's so cool. I know it's kind of like I've always worked with midlife women. Even before I was a midlife myself, I started as a registered dietitian. And everybody coming to me, they were all midlife women, and I was a personal trainer as well. And again, everybody, when I was in midlife myself,
Mhm.
my 40s, everyone was coming. And I think that's a time where if we haven't been taking care of our bodies are like, okay, big sort of throwing gasoline on the fire when estrogen starts to go up, go down, and be all over the map. So it's really interesting that it found you. And it sounds like you became passionate, even though initially you really wanted to work with men, but it seems like you've really developed an amazing niche. So tell us a little bit about your program, Menopause Made Simple. Who's the program for? What will people find on it? And how does it help women confidently manage their menopause journey?
So the program, I actually created the program because I was actually joining forums and going into these areas where women were talking about menopause. And then, of course, women coming to me. And no matter where, every woman I heard say, I don't know anything about menopause, or I don't understand menopause. And so all of these questions that were coming at me were all, to me, based around education, which was just simple. I'm like, okay, so clearly it's not just about women not talking to each other about it. If they don't understand it or don't know what it is, what are they going to talk about, right?
Right.
Except for what their symptoms are and things like that. But I always say menopause is so much more than just a woman's health issue. It's a woman's life issue. It
Mhm.
impacts her physically, mentally, and emotionally. So that means it's going to affect her at home, at work, and in society as a whole. And so once we learn about those areas, how those areas affect a woman mentally, again, physically and emotionally, then I think that we can also see how it ties back to everyone, women, men, children that need to know, because in order for women to get the resource and the things that they need to support them through menopause and just healthy aging in general, we all have to have an understanding and a collective, support behind it. All comes down to empathy and support, in my opinion. And so what the program does is it provides the education about all areas of menopause, the symptoms, the different types of symptom relief. I think that you were saying how there's a lot of talk right now in the media about menopause, which I think is amazing. But what I feel though is that everyone keeps saying the same thing, that it just is repeating, and we're not moving the needle forward. We're like stuck in this place where we're still trying to educate women about why it's okay to take our HRT. But there's still a wide range of women that can't take our HRT or that aren't able to. And so they think that they have no other resources, but there's tons of resources. So that's what's in this program. I provide all the resources, but I also provide all the pros and cons. That way you're able to confidently navigate these areas. You're able to confidently talk to your doctors about these things, because as you probably know, 70% of doctors aren't even educated in menopause. So to be
Even
able to advocate,
OBGYNs, which is
yeah, exactly.
amazing. It's
Yeah.
like you're educated on once you have your babies, but after your reproductive cycle is over, it's like there's no place for you here, which is insane, especially because we're living longer. So that's amazing. So let's talk about, some treatment options. I mean, we talked about
Mhm.
HRT, and that really is a personalized decision. I mean, myself, I am on HRT because my mom's got osteoporosis, and that's the best way to beat osteoporosis. I feel amazing on it. But I'm also a breast cancer survivor. So that was a little bit of a hard conversation for me to have with myself and my physicians, but really decided it was best for me. So that's a really, important conversation. It sounds like you're offering people a lot of pros and cons, but let's talk about natural things. I know when I'm working with women in menopause, it's stress reduction, sleep, exercise, and nutrition. So tell me, in all of those areas, what does your program offer women? What can women do to help
Well,
manage the symptoms?
it more so talks about how to personalize those areas, because I think a lot of times we tell women, oh, just eat better or exercise. But what does that really mean? Everyone says, well, we know that. We know that we're supposed to exercise. We know, but women going through menopause specifically they need more strength training. They specifically need vitamin D, vitamin C, calcium, magnesium, omega 3s. And a lot of women aren't aware of these. I actually had a woman go through the program, and she went to her doctor and got all those areas tested, and she was deficient in them all. So she had no clue she even needed that type of supplementation. So it's about teaching women those things, not just about that it's important to do those things, but which things they need to look out for. It's kind of like when I hear other trainers tell their clients, listen to your body. What does that mean? Listen to what? That's where I think that I think the program says this is what you need to be paying attention to. These are the areas that you need to look out for, because a lot of women don't even realize that half of their symptoms are even related to menopause. They think it's just old age, or they're losing their memory, or things like that. There's up to 60 different symptoms associated with menopause that typically happen during perimenopause, which is another thing that I had so many women tell me they had never even heard of perimenopause. And this is like one of the most substantial phases of menopause that women are going to experience. So it's those little nuances of things like that I think are part of the program, where women are able to say, okay, now I understand this better. And one of the things that every woman that went through the program said was, I wish I learned this sooner.
So important. And just if you're listening, perimenopause is the time period leading up to menopause, and it can start a decade before. What menopause is, it's that moment where you haven't had a menstrual cycle consecutively for 12 months. So there's this long period of time, and that's when these symptoms happen, because estrogen receptors are everywhere. I just saw this amazing study where they actually looked at the brain of women going through menopause and found out that when women are going in perimenopause, going through the menopausal transition, the brain actually creates more estrogen receptors, because estrogen is going down and the brain is hungry for the estrogen. So it's everywhere. It's in the bone, it's in the muscles, it's in the heart. So it's a super important time where women start to not only you need to manage that, you want to manage the symptoms so you feel good, but your body is changing. And if you don't take control and empower yourself, your health can go south. And I think it's such an important time, sort of that 50, the 50-mile checkup when you're hitting your 50s and looking and saying, gosh, where's my cholesterol? Where's my bone density at? Even, where am I at in terms of my cardiovascular fitness? Is a great time to sort of take track. And just to talk about the supplementation, D is so important. Most people in North America don't get enough D. We get D in very few foods and sunlight, but most of us aren't getting enough sunlight. So D is a simple thing that your doctor can check for, and you can take a supplement. It's inexpensive. Calcium needs actually increase after age 50. So it goes up to, I think, 1,200 from 1,000 milligrams a day. So when you want to spread that out throughout the day, magnesium, super helpful as well. Great to help you relax in the evening. So definitely important to get this program and take a look at those different things. So want to talk a
Can
little
I
bit.
just say one thing?
Sure,
Like
go ahead.
you had mentioned about the health aspect. So before I actually started focusing on the education aspect, when I was doing the symptom relief with my clients, one thing you had mentioned was how the health implications and how estrogen affects everything. Each person that I treated differently, each of all of their symptoms were actually not directly caused by menopause. It was actually something that was triggered by menopause, but that either affected their thyroid or their adrenal or their liver or their digestive tract. So what I would do with my clients is I would focus on healing those areas, and that's how they got rid of their symptoms. It wasn't about focusing on menopause itself. It was about focusing on what the byproduct of menopause was. You heal that area and you get rid of your symptoms. I had one client that came to me, and her blood numbers said that she was off in menopause, but when she came to me and I looked at her symptoms, it was thyroid. So I had her go have her thyroid checked again. Sure enough, the medication she was on had triggered her into hypothyroidism. And what is the side effect of hypothyroidism? Hot flashes. She was having
Right.
them every 30 minutes. So because she was having hot flashes and she had stopped her period, her doctor immediately said, let's put you on HRT. But turns out that HRT wasn't the solution. Changing her thyroid medication was, and now she has no more hot flashes. So sometimes it's about really digging in and not just going to that
Mm.
first, trigger thing. Let's do the medication. Again, sometimes it's a lifestyle change that's about another area of your body that is in distress that you need to focus on healing that area first. And then if you still have issues with the estrogen and it's affecting other symptoms, then you focus in that direction. And I think that it's really important for women to know that every woman's journey is going to be unique. So when your best friend's solution, that's her own relief, and there's different types of HRT as well. So even if you are someone that's on HRT, there's various solutions for that. So it's about finding what works for you. You're going to have to balance it and tweak it from time to time. A lot of women think once they get on HRT, that's the solution. It can take years before you find the right balance that's going to be what's good for you. Some women, it's going to happen immediately. Some women, it's going to be different. And I think it's important for women to know that there are going to be ebbs and flows and nuances, and that everyone's experience is going to be unique to you.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you're thinking holistically. I have Hashimoto's disease. So like it was like this perfect storm, right? So you've got the
Mhm.
estrogen going, all of these hormones are interacting. Plus you've got incredible stress at midlife. A lot of us that have, teenagers and aging parents and work pressures and marriage pressures. And it's this perfect storm, but you have to figure out like what are the root things. And I love that you're looking at that. So let's talk about like everybody coming to me is always the weight loss, right? I get kind of tired of hearing about it, but that's kind of like the symptom that is bothering women the most. And I'm curious how you address it, what you do in terms of movement. Certainly, it's very different weight gain than the subcutaneous body fat. So the subcutaneous body fat is what we get before menopause, and that's more it reacts more to diet and exercise, calories in, calories out. But the belly fat is visceral fat, which is actually dangerous. It's metabolically active. It can really play a number of things like your cholesterol, your lipid levels, and it needs to be addressed very differently. I'm curious how you go about both, helping women to understand the long game. It's not like
Mhm.
the beach body bingo, right? But we
Yeah.
need to like change to a whole food plant-based diet because obviously there's also a lot of gut things going on. And that we're, understanding the importance of the microbiome in terms of the role that it plays in weight loss and menopause. But how do you address that? Both calming women down because they just
Mhm.
want to lose weight. That's like the only metric
Yeah.
they're looking at. And then how do you actually help them to, to change their body size?
I'm glad to hear you say that because I always feel like I'm the only one that hears that because I have people tell me they have like 16 different symptoms of menopause, but the one that is most important to them is the weight loss, right? So, but I always say the first thing I always say is I want them to really understand that they're focusing on the wrong thing. And that's
Bravo.
because when you're going through menopause, your hormones don't care that you want to lose weight, right? Your hormones want you to balance them. They want you to do whatever it takes to your body by nature wants to be healthy and thrive. It's up to us to provide what it needs in order for it to do that. And if you're providing with something that it doesn't need or that's causing more of a stressor, which heavier exercise when you're having, like you said, cortisol is affected during menopause. So that's our stress hormone. And guess what? When your stress is elevated, it also triggers the belly fat hormone. And so then there's all these things that are going on as well. So it's about focusing on what is causing that cortisol spike beyond just the drop in the estrogen, right? Is it lifestyle issues? And then we also have to look at the fact that like you were talking about stress. Well, I think a lot of times we think about stress only as I had a bad day at work or I'm having an argument, but stress triggers in our body by all kinds of stress, physical, mental, and emotional. A bone break is a stress that triggers the hormones the same way that emotional stress does. The same with when your estrogen drops. That is a trigger that is happening into your body that's causing your body to go through a change that is a stressor. So you want to focus on stress management first before you do anything else in order to start getting those cortisol levels balanced so that you can start to work on the body fat naturally, though. You can't focus in on the old ways of dieting and the old ways of exercising. Your 45-year-old muscles are not supposed to do what your 25-year-old muscles did. Your 50-year-old digestive tract is not going to process foods the same way that your 30-year-old digestive tract is. You have to change and as your body did. I always think about it this way. We think about every stage of life. We naturally change and progress. We change how we eat, how we move, and the environment we in. Baby to child, child to teenager, teenager to young adult. But for whatever reason, when we go from young adult to middle age, what does everybody do? They want to fight. They want to change. They want to do all the stuff they did before. And what happens when we fight and resist things? It causes tension, causes resistance, causes pain. And what are those? Stressors, stressors on the body. So instead of trying to fight the aging process, it's about working with it. And again, that's going to help you to find the right balance that all of your hormones need in order to thrive so that you can adequately lose body fat. And your body fat is going to drop much slower than it did before because, like you said, it's about the long game. It's not about trying to get ready for an event that's happening in 3 weeks. It's not going to happen. And if it does happen, it's going to be very short-lived. And when that fat comes back on, it's going to be 2 times or 3 times worse than it was before because it's your body rebounding from a diet that you can't actually sustain. So when you're going through the menopause and beyond, you want to do things that you can sustain for a lifetime because you're at middle age now. You still got 30, 40, maybe even 50 more years beyond. Menopause is not an old woman's illness like most women want to think of it as. Like, I'm not in menopause yet. It's not like it was when when we were younger and our parents were going through it.
Yeah, and it's not an illness. It's a normal,
Exactly.
natural transition, and I think about it as sort of caterpillar to butterfly, and so if you're listening, it's whole food, plant-based diet, nothing crazy, and it's certainly, doing cardio, it's important for your heart health, and, it helps with the stress reduction, but it's super important to do the strength training because when the estrogen decreases, we lose muscle mass, plus we just become more sedentary. I mean, I don't know if we talked about the weight thing. The other thing that I hear from women all the time is they blame everything on menopause, and I'm like, you have some agency here. You can be empowered. So let's talk a little bit for people who are listening and they want to know, how do I bring my partner, my husband, my boss, the men in my life, maybe my sons, how do I get that familial support? Because that's a really interesting aspect of your program that I haven't heard. And from the man's perspective, how do women talk to men, people that they love, to get the support that they need?
First and foremost, it's just talking about it. Again, going back to seeing all these things in the media. I think one of the things that I think is the bad part of all the press around it is that, like the Oprah conversation she's had in October, First 2 minutes of her conversation, men, this is not for you. So you immediately push us out of the
No, yeah.
conversation. You know what I mean? So I was excited about it. And that when she said that, that turned me off. And this is what I do. So imagine a man who's just there to listen for his wife. You tell me I'm not supposed to be here, then I'm not going to want to be here. Or you tell me men wouldn't understand, so why should we try to understand? It's about opening up the conversation and getting rid of the divisiveness. Even like Halle Berry talking about it, her initial thing is to bash the male doctor. A man doesn't do it, so we have to do it. So again, if you include us in the conversation, we're going to be more apt to be a part of it. Also, I always say this as well. Men also go through a transition in midlife called andropause. It is not the same as menopause, but there are a lot of same similar uh, um, things like hot flashes, night sweats, low libido. All those things are the same. I had a guy on my show, him and his wife were having hot flashes at the same time. So again, it goes
Yeah.
back to the conversation. And I always think of it this way. If women aren't talking to each other about menopause, do you think men are talking to each other about andropause? I'm currently in andropause, by the way, also on HRT for men. So
Mhm.
that's another perspective that I have, because even though it's not the exact same thing, I know what it feels like to lose control of my body. I know what it feels like to have to take a medication all the time that you don't really want to have to be on. I know about how there's side effects that could affect my prostate and things like that. So I have that understanding and empathy because I'm going through and experiencing it. But I'm also having conversations with women about it.
Mm.
So, and the more that conversation becomes easier to have, which is also why part of my Menopause Made Simple training series, I actually have Menopause Made Simple for men, so that men can actually learn about menopause for their spouses, for their colleagues, for their employees, because again, it's a life issue. So it's going to affect them at work and in their social settings. So men need to understand those things so that there can be more empathy, more support, and more awareness. And then all those things. And we've always already seen in many studies that when women are just able to speak about it openly, that they're able to reduce their symptoms because it releases that anxiety and that stress about it, that they think people are going to look down on it. And that's based on outdated stigmas and taboos that we just need to throw out.
Yeah, I think it's amazing though that all of these celebrities are bashing the men going through it instead of saying, come along. And when I'm working with women and helping people change their lifestyle, the partner's got to go along with it. Like if she wants to go to bed at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and he's got the TV blasting or whatever, it's like, he's got to be on board with you. You need your room to be cold and dark and quiet. And, the diet whole thing of changing your lifestyle of going from, okay, instead of going out for cocktails, we're going to go out for a bike ride,
Mhm.
or, we're going to start adding in the fruits and the vegetables. We're going to get rid of, going out to eat. We didn't talk too much about things like endocrine disruptors. But I mean, one of the best ways to get your hormones in a healthier place is to make your own food and have a plant-based diet. And the men have to go along with it. And what I often find, and I had a client the other day, and she was struggling with, menopause, and she had put on weight, but her husband's on 15 medications and is a, type 2 diabetic. So it's like, it works to do it together, and it
Together.
can actually bring you closer.
And don't forget about sex as well. Like a lot of men don't understand that when estrogen leaves, there's vaginal changes that happen that when she doesn't want to have sex, it has nothing to do with you and your ego. You think she doesn't love you anymore. She just wants that she doesn't want to be with you. Because it hurts. It hurts her physically and emotionally. But if a man doesn't have that knowledge or awareness, how can he be sensitive or empathetic about it when it's just, because as you said, it's difficult for you to have that conversation with him. But if he's part of the awareness part of it, then that's something that he'll understand and be aware of. That'll make it easier to have that conversation. Not only that, you'll be able to have that more support, be able to find different solutions together. And every woman that I've worked with that has had a successful journey, who is in a marriage or partnership, they had that successful thing because they had the support of their partner. So it is important to have, as you said, to have that support, because it's going to be a lifestyle shift that has to be made by the entire household, because she's never going to be able to do that alone. she's not a, a line cook and have to make different meals for everyone in the
Right.
house, So you want to make sure that everyone's doing this collectively, kids included, because one of my clients says that now that she's gone through the training, she's having conversations with her teenage daughters. And now when she's in mood, they understand, you know what I mean? And also it's good for them to know because eventually they're going to get menopause as well.
Yeah, and you also need support because you're not feeling as good, perhaps if you're, having trouble with sleeping and hot flashes and you have more fatigue, get the kids to pick up and do the dishes and help you out and make dinner. I mean, you're not going to make three different things. It's okay. I think a lot of women of my generation are people pleasers, right? They want to make
Mhm.
everybody happy, do everything. We grew up with these Anjali, I'm going to fry up the bacon, put it in the pan and do all the things, put the kids to bed. And enough, right? This is your time.
Yeah,
I think one of the blessings of menopause is that you get selfish. The brain
yeah.
changes, and all of a sudden you're like, no, this is me. And you get through that and figure out, like, what do I want with this second chapter of my life? So I love that you shared that. And I want to say, too, if sex hurts, talk about it, use lubrication, and think about estradiol. If you are worried about HRT, estradiol is a topical estrogen that doesn't get through and into your blood system. It's quite safe. Talk to your OBGYN about it. I know I'm on it, and it's made a huge amount of difference in the intimacy department. But, we talked about it. My partner had benign prostate hyperplasia. So we actually didn't get intimate when we, started like dating and being together, which was like a real blessing. And then gradually started working on things. But, if it hurts, talk about it, get some support. And if you're going to a doctor who doesn't listen to whether they're male or female, I'm amazed at how many women tell me they have a female doctor who won't listen to them. Get another doctor. Go to the National Menopause Society. You can find a doctor there. They take insurance. There are great doctors who are trained. So just a couple more questions. I'm dying to know, how did you get the moniker Mr. Menopause? And what do people
Uh,
think about when they say, hi, I'm this, like, I'm like, hi, I'm the midlife whisperer. You're like, hi, I'm Mr. Menopause. What do
Well,
people
it's
say?
interesting. I get kind of mixed reviews. Sometimes it's like, it intrigues people and they want to know more. So they're like you, like, it's like, what's this? I've gotten a little backlash, like, who do you think you are? A man talking about menopause, no uterus, no opinion type of a stuff. And but
You've
for the
been in a
most,
uterus, so that's okay, right?
what's that?
You've been in a uterus.
Right, right. And yeah, so it's been mixed. But for the most part, I'm very much embraced. I'm also part of the Menopause Experts Group, which is a big company that started in the UK, that does licensing all around the world for workplaces and things like that. And they've been very embracing. I've been in their magazine twice, and they just, and so, which has been great. And then people like yourself finding me online, it lets me see that putting that moniker out there actually helps to bring more attention, because it kind of catches people off guard. With the Mr. aspect of it, like Mr. Menopause, that doesn't quite go together. But then typically when people see one of my videos or hear me talk, they're like, oh, I get it now. Because it really is about being just a support system. I always say I'm an ally in this fight. I've been passionate about it for the past 2 decades, and I just think that Mr. Menopause just fits who I am and what I'm doing right now.
You've got great energy. I'm sure that the women who work with you feel really blessed to have found you. So,
Thank you.
I'm one last question. So, what's the one thing that you would tell a woman going through menopause, like your absolute gem? If you just had one thing to say to someone's listening, they're going through menopause, what is like the biggest, that diamond that you want to share with women?
It's awareness. You have to understand what the process is. You can't rely on a Google search. You can't rely on what your best friend said. That's their anecdotal experience, which can be beneficial when it comes to emotional support and things like that. But as far as like the symptom relief and things like that, knowing and understanding what those resources are, as well as just knowing and understanding what is actually happening to your body, is the most important thing. Like knowing that the possibility that you're having frozen shoulder at 40 is not because you're getting old, it's because it might be because of menopause, or perimenopause. But lots of women just think that they're getting old when it's actually a transition that's happening in your body that can actually be minimized, managed, and even prevented when you have the actual awareness and resources in order to support yourself and to advocate for yourself. That's another thing that's super important because like we were stating, many doctors are not aware, but if you're aware, you can be a self-advocate for yourself to ensure that you're getting the support and resources that you need so that you can confidently manage menopause and that you can thrive through it instead of just surviving through it.
Yeah, that's amazing advice to do the awareness and be an advocate. And can we just get shame out of there?
Yeah.
Get the shame. There's nothing wrong with your body. It is a normal, natural thing that women go through. And I would add to that too. One of my big plugs is self-compassion. Women like just be like, oh, this is hard. It is hard. It is
Yeah.
definitely a hard midlife is challenging, but you'll get through it. And I think the beauty is you let go of who you think you're supposed to be and you embrace who you are. And I think the extra pressure of menopause is like that carbon diamond or caterpillar, the butterfly, whatever metamorphosis you want to talk about. You can really learn to be there for yourself. So Tafiq, thank you so much for being here. People want to work with you or get your course. It's called Menopause Made Simple. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
The best way I would say, and before you do anything, would be to take my menopause awareness assessment. And the assessment is actually designed to provide personalized insights into your personal level of awareness. I always say that when you know better, you can do better. And when it comes to menopause, you can live better. And so just by taking this quick assessment, it's only 15 questions, it's completely free, but you'll be able to determine the type of support and education that you need in order to confidently manage your menopause journey. And you can find the assessment on my website, mrmenopause.com. And at the very top link, you'll see it says menopause assessment. Click that link and you can take the assessment there.
All right, mrmenopause.com. And I'm assuming we can reach you at all the places, the Instagrams, the Facebooks, all of that. And that's
Yeah.
what a great resource to provide for people. And I know that your course is doing a lot of good in the world. I think the more we educate too, the more like we have to educate our doctors, our men, our children, and we are, changing the way that we are perceiving this. So thank you so much for being here, Tafiq. It's been a complete pleasure. Thank you all so much for listening. I'm Dr. Ellen, the Midlife Whisperer. If you want to reach out to me, it's themidlifewhisperer.com. That's themidlifewhisperer.com. Catch you on the next episode. Welcome to the Rock Your Midlife podcast, your transformative sanctuary designed to guide you through self-discovery and provide the tools you need to find your purpose and navigate life authentically. Whether you want to optimize your health, boost your happiness, or deepen your self-love, this podcast is your ultimate toolkit.